for thousands of years, what determines parenting style is parenting style. And what determines that parenting style is the generation before. So how did we begin? In all of my research, there's a really interesting pattern that I found. Societies that are struck chronically, like for instance, under conditions of severe climate change and malnutrition over a couple of generations, it begins to drive human behavior towards away from collaboration. We migrate towards more and more competitiveness, more about dominance, which is always patriarchal. So chronic intergenerational stress, precariousness, epigenetic changes. We start to fight for life rather than collaborate and help for life. That gets transmitted to childhood. You look at your child and the instinct shifts towards, if you're going to survive in an unfriendly world, better learn to fight or obey the fighting leader, because that's how you survive. So we go from aliveness to survival. Then that gets passed down. Those things become institutionalized in the religion and in the law.
Welcome to the Mindform Podcast, where we delve into the minds of some of the most interesting people on the planet, discuss psychology, philosophy, and personal growth, and share the wisdom we uncover with you. Join us as we explore the art of forming our minds. Here's your host, Frank Lawton.
Kia ora from New Zealand. This is the Mindform Podcast. Here we share real conversations with earnest seekers of the good life, uncovering gems of wisdom every time. Each guest is a unique expert in philosophy, psychology, and personal growth, and all are members of the Psychohistory collective and training platform Mindform. This week, I'm privileged to be speaking with Robin Grille. Robin is a psychologist with 30 plus years of experience as a psychotherapist. He's an author of 3 books, including Parenting for a Peaceful World. He's an international speaker and teacher, an armchair anthropologist, self-titled, and a social evolution tracker. Basically, he works for a positive evolution of the collective human psyche. So I find all of that very exciting. What an interesting collection of interests and expertise. Welcome to the podcast, Robin.
Good to be with you, Frank. Kia ora to you.
Yeah, or what would you say? G'day.
G'day in Australia.
Yeah.
Jingiwala in the Bundjalung language. I'm
Good.
living in Bundjalung country, northeast New South Wales.
Awesome. Ginjiwala.
Jingiwala.
Okay, very good. Cool. How are you right now? What's alive in you, Robin?
Enjoying this wonderful spring that's coming. I'll tell you what, the first thing that comes up when you ask that is how happy I am living on this land, and we're in the midst of a massive bush regen project, regenerating the land back to its original state. So taking out exotic species and planting a huge variety of native species and returning the ecology, and loving what happens when the land just comes back to life. The animals come back, and it's incredibly fulfilling. It's quite thrilling. It's a very new thing for us. We've been at it for about 5 years. It's amazing how that connects with everything else we're going to be talking about, actually.
I think it'll come up a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's raw joy, man. I'm in Wellington in New Zealand, and as my assessment is, I mean, I haven't really been thorough in my comparisons, but I think we might be the rewilding capital of the world here. That's just, the same thing's happening, and even over the last 5 years living in this region, just seeing increased. I mean, we've got a unique ecosystem here. It's all birds, all of our kind of larger wildlife, outside of bugs and that, and just seeing these big fat kiriru wood pigeons flying over all the time, and hearing just in the little tree outside our front window, and we're in proper concrete suburbia, but there's so much around that we have native birds in and out of the trees out in our garden and everything. Yeah, it's magical. So I get you. It's funny comparing with you. You guys are trying to restore natural wildlife. You're probably supporting the possum population, but the way we restore natural wildlife is by killing any possum.
Getting rid of them.
Lay our eyes on.
That's right. Totally different conversation around possums across the ditch.
Yeah.
But we did have a wonderful kind of symbol of reward. Just recently, we found and spotted our first koala on this property.
Wow.
And I'm rapidly, increasingly disliking the word property. The custodianship feels so much more realistic and and
What about
honest.
it's custodianship? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
estate.
Well,
um,
yeah.
great. Okay,
Mm.
well, I reading a bit of your work in that, I know you have used the term psychohistorian to describe yourself. When you used that term, I thought you were playfully referencing Isaac Asimov's Foundation book series, where psychohistory is kind of the MacGuffin of the science fiction. All people can use advanced math to predict the collective evolution of it. I thought, oh, that's a fun thing to reference. But then I looked it up, and it's like a real profession. So could you tell me all about psychohistory? What is that, and what's your work with it?
Simply put, it's the study of documentation that reveals a picture of the history of childhood, the history of parenting around the world, in as many cultures around the world, in every continent as is possible. And kickstarted by an American, a New Yorker called Lloyd DeMouse, who died recently. But there are faculties of psychohistory. It's kind of a sub-faculty of history.
Mm-hmm.
And it just looks at, it looks for patterns. And it reveals things such as, whereas we might have thought that parenting is a static, it isn't. It's been evolving and changing enormously throughout history, recorded history as well as pre-recorded. By looking at it's interesting how archaeologists can find record of human behavior. So that's one discovery, that it also varies from culture to culture enormously. So that there's it's an open variable. Even though we bring a lot of instinct to our parenting, there's still a very, very broad spectrum of diversity of how we use that instinct or how we fail to use it in relationship with our children. And so the next pattern that psychohistory talks about is that the way that collectively we customarily treat children decides the politics of the society 1 and 2 and 3 generations later. Of course, I'm oversimplifying, but when you start to look at those patterns, it hits you like a slap, the sheer reality of it. So,
You got kids, Robin?
we have one kid. Our kid is 27,
Yep.
lives right
Older
near
than me.
you. She's in Autaki Beach, about an hour north of Wellington.
True.
Yeah. She migrated to New Zealand. She's an expat, and
Yeah.
that's
She's a
that's
year
a
older
story.
than me. I go there sometimes. Maybe I've seen her before. Who knows?
You might know each other. Very special place. And Autaki Beach. So yeah, the way that we raise children, because the way that we raise children then decides the politics of a nation, not just its politics, but its relationship to the natural environment.
That would extend, right? I mean, it would be every aspect of culture. I imagine the theology or the way of practicing religiosity and all of that would be impacted by how that generation is parented. Have you looked at that at all?
Yeah, it goes in both directions. So, for example, if our theology tends towards the authoritarian, then it follows we are going to be raising our children in a very authoritarian environment, and they are going to be primed and conditioned towards choosing authoritarian styles of leadership, or if not choosing it, failing to act against it, accepting it, or being passive in its face, or being helpless in the face of authoritarianism.
I feel like this
Right.
disturbed from when I was quite young. I felt
Yeah.
really disturbed when I would meet. It's usually girls, young girls, as in little children, who have really adopted this framework, and it's a survival strategy by the my estimation of like being obedient and doing what you're told is good. That's how you do life. That's what a kid does, and yeah, I don't know. I always found that really disturbing, and I think it was sensing that exact thing. It's like, oh, but what if someone's telling you what to do and they shouldn't be listened to? I always, it's such a, I think that culture,
yeah.
of training kids to be obedient is so dangerous.
It sends shivers up my spine.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
when you read history and you read about wars and you read about dictatorship and you read about genocide and slavery, that's where that comes from, and that's where that comes from.
Wow,
And
that's a powerful causal
because
line to draw there.
it lands well when you see how strong the pattern is and how well documented it is. But there's a flip side to it,
I believe you.
and the flip side is that every leap forward in every social evolutionary leap in the direction of democracy or better quality of democracy, um, or in the direction of human rights, in the direction of more respect towards the non-human world. That's also driven by reforms in child rearing,
Mm.
right? Not to, it's never. I mean, you go to any society, there's a whole range of the way that children get raised, but when you the driver is the critical mass. Say if 30% or 40% of kids are raised, for example, in a more democratic home and
Mhm.
school and school environment, right? I really want to underline that. So it's not just mum and dad; it's the eldership all across the board. You know, when that shift happens in a critical mass, that pushes the politics of the society in that direction, and it's noticeable within a generation, but even more in 2 and 3 generations. It's transgenerational.
All right, so say
Yeah.
there's a book there, maybe unwritten. I don't know exactly the content of each of the books you've written, but that maps out major points in psychohistory, right?
That's my
Shifts
first
in
book.
parenting. That's your first book. What's that called?
That's Parenting for a Peaceful World. So I've
Oh,
got
that's
it.
Parenting for a Peaceful World. That's the one on my
Yeah,
to
yeah,
read
yeah.
list now. Yeah, exciting.
And
Okay,
what I did is I
okay.
grabbed the findings of all the psychohistorians and I bagged it together into a package that's digestible.
Yeah.
I put it all in one place, so you don't have to go and read all of the journals.
Okay, well,
And
that's a perfect preface to my question, which is give us the. Do you remember? It was a bit crap, but that sort of app that came out. I don't know if it's still alive, but Blinkist. Do you remember that? It was like book summaries. It was like, oh, get all the value of reading a book without reading it by getting Blinkist, which like summarizes a book so that you only have to spend 5 minutes reading about it, like as if you learn anything. But anyway,
yeah,
could you give us the Blinkist of your like the Blinkist summary of like those key shifts? I'm just curious of like moments that you've deduced as really major and shifts in parenting and what outcomes those have had collectively that we can observe through history, because I want me
yeah.
and the listener to get a picture of that history.
Do you want me to give you like live historical examples?
Yeah, that would.
Actual historical examples.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, take us
Yeah,
through history and like, oh, this was a parenting shift, whether prehistory or whatever, and then this is the cultural shift. And if you can point to things we all know about that helps us understand for sure.
right. Off the top of my head, I'm going to Blinkist the Holocaust and Blinkist the Second World War together.
Sorry, it's funny. Go ahead. Yeah, do it.
That's some black humor you got there, Frank. But yeah, let's Blinkist that. So they did a really close study that looked at a huge range of documentation that shows a picture of the
This isn't fun.
prevailing dominant attitude to children towards the end of the 19th century, when Nazis were about to be born and being born. The people that were going to become both Nazis or just indifferent to the whole thing. Unable to read the room, like when somebody starts shouting and banging tables, you go, "Yeah, that's my guy. He seems okay. He's a bit eccentric." Okay, so including all of that, and in Central Europe, roughly where Germany is, there was a really distinct and measurable excess authoritarianism. You could read it in the child rearing manuals of the time, which are horrific. I won't tell you what's in them because you won't get sleep tonight. But you can find that in my book. I did a whole chapter on Germany of that time.
Wow.
The suicide rates amongst youth were far higher than surrounding European countries. The suicide notes was tended to say, I can't live with my parents anymore. They beat me up. I can't stand it. It's horrific.
Jesus.
I mean, it's a really, 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 really a black picture. And the languaging of the times was very much, as you were saying earlier, obedience. The purpose of child rearing is to create obedience, unquestioning obedience. Authority is right through might. You can see in that child rearing approach, philosophy, sentiment, you can see Nazism being prepared. It's like a petri dish for Nazism. But there is also, and this is, see, the beauty of it is that it shows you that it's not a German trait, for God's sakes. It's not an anybody's trait. It's utterly non-ethnic. This can happen everywhere. Doesn't matter your language or race, creed, or color. It can happen. It's where the children are raised in this way. Meantime, two sociologists, Samuel and Pearl Onlina, did a huge study, which they published in a book called The Altruistic Personality, because they wanted to find out what made the rescuers tick. Because there was thousands of people in Germany that risked their life, they risked their families to take people who were usually strangers and hide them. So they wouldn't be transported, Jewish people. And so they found a lot of them, and they did an incredibly extensive questionnaire study with all of them, with a control group, comparing them to people that, they weren't particularly evil, but they just didn't choose to rescue anyone. They just went along with things and kept their head down. To dig for what's the difference. We all want to know if there's a difference, because we want to know if there's some kind of agency. We're looking for agency. Is humanity irrevocably and randomly violent? Is it a genetic predisposition? Is that all there is? That's the burning question inside all of us. So people are looking for, can we influence the outcome here? To do that, you got to find out what happened. How do we get here? That's how we know. If we know how we got here, we have a direction to go forward in a desired way. What they found is no difference in socioeconomic, no difference in religiosity, no different in a whole bunch of you can feel the punchline.
A whole bunch of things that people prioritize in their parenting. Hey, I need my kid to be the right religion. I need to have a nice home and economic access for my kid.
Well, there was no difference in any of those measures between the two groups. They found one difference that stuck out like a sore thumb, which was the child rearing method. So in a way that was markedly different from the rest of Germany, the rescuers had a much, much higher tendency to be people that were not beaten by their parents when they were young. Now, this is not all about hitting children. What it is, however, that it's a sign that generally that's going to be a very high authoritarian style of parenting, right? And of course, they had much warmer demonstrative styles of attachment that they benefited from in their childhood. Both of those things together, the non-authoritarianism and the warm demonstrative attachment style. I'm using a science word, which I don't like. It's a bit too cold, but there you are. And look at the cultural shift. Those people were unable to live with the idea that somebody will get selected for their ethnicity and be cleansed out of our country, as they were said. They couldn't live with that, and they put their own life at risk. That's just one of the many, many examples. I'd love to give you one more quick one.
Please do.
Sweden. If you look at Sweden, they've got the highest female participation rate in the world, in politics, in business, and academia. So the most gender balanced country on earth. One of the most democratic, the highest quality of democracy in the world. And this tremendous pro-environment policy that's ingrained in the country, right? It's continually scores really highly on the happiness index. for the world on a whole bunch of measures. It's an evolving society, like all of us, with all of their problems, but they score better on all of the desired measures than almost every country on earth. So the first question to ask is then what's happened to the children in Sweden? How did that get created? Here's one indicator. Sweden was the first country in the world to make the smacking of children illegal. It's an act of domestic violence.
That happened when I was a child. That shift was only 15 years ago in this country.
2007, I was there in New Zealand. I met Sue Bradford, the Green senator that introduced the bill.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, hats off to her. And it was bipartisan, and also the Māori Party voted yes to that. But Sweden, 1979, and they did that before there was any scientific evidence that hitting children is detrimental. They just said, no, we don't hit each other. And children, what are we thinking? What are we thinking? We're so adamant that husbands shouldn't smack wives, but kids who are infinitely even more vulnerable. So there's that. They've got one of the higher breastfeeding rates in the world, which is an indicator of, you can't breastfeed from a distance. So it's not a remote thing. So it's an indicator of a commitment to closeness, intimate bonds with babies.
And that'll be linked to economic and health things as well, because I got a friend who's a lactation advisor or whatever. She
consultant.
Supports she's a midwife, but also she supports them on the breastfeeding journey. And for her, it's the need to go back to work and send your kid to daycare from 6 weeks old that stops the breastfeeding, or it's that you're really unhealthy, so or your kid's unhealthy, you've had a diabetic pregnancy, so you can't do it, or it's just like you're so overwhelmed because of your trauma, poverty, whatever, that it's another thing. So I think
there's all kinds of reasons for that. It's okay. But when you look at, because every single family will have its things that it can't do. But we all have limits. But when you look at a national policy of support, you're evidencing like a quantum difference in general attitude towards children that says yes to the support that they should have, and it has a dividend that's absolutely remarkable, right? So, by the way, in Sweden, parents get paid to avoid going to work and be with their little child for the first 18 months up to 3 years. You get paid 80% of what you were earning before your child was born.
It's about 40-50% here, and it's only for 6 months.
Right. Yeah. And New Zealand is far more advanced than Australia in that area.
Which is far more advanced than the US. Just to
case in point. Case in point.
Into the combo.
Look what happened to the US. Look right now at the US, and it tells you everything you need to know about how critical mass of children were raised, including that 19 out of the 50 states still allow school teachers to paddle.
Wait, for real?
With a paddle. In Australia, we used to get the cane on the fingers. In those 19 states, you can predict which states they are. The likes of Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, right? The coincides very well with the red states, that they are allowed to paddle the kids on the buttocks. Whoa, yes, for real. Yes, for real. The politics of the country starting in the classroom. Authoritarianism conditions us towards authoritarianism, unless you go through a rejection process and a healing process. But most people don't get the benefit of that. They don't have that good fortune. So really, I mean, where all this lands for me is good. We have agency.
Amazing.
I can't create the reality that I want. We can create, and always do actually, we can create the reality that we want.
Right? One note that you might find interesting, and then I have a few more questions to further flesh out this incredibly interesting and moving really picture of is what so the story is I was looking into the history of Steiner education and Montessori, which kind of two, I don't know what it's like in Australia there or other parts of the world, but those are kind of the two major alternative kind of child-centered education options that people have, especially for like early childhood or primary school age. And I was looking into the history of Montessori, which is really interesting. It came out during this period of fascism, by an Italian woman during this period of fascism in Europe. And as it was growing and growing, and it was really defiant, this woman went to a kind of orphanage or a place for abandoned kids, and people were disgusted at these kids. They remarked to her, the story that really made the switch for her. They remarked to her, "Oh, look at these kids are just awful. They're just disgusting. Look at how when they've finished their meal, they scatter onto the floor and fight over little crumbs and just start fiddling with crumbs." And she said, "Well, they don't have anything else to play with." And she kind of from that built this whole philosophy like, oh, like maybe you need to kids need stimulus to develop, basically, which was kind of controversial at the time. And Montessori is really controversial for basically saying, oh, if you give kids everything they need, they'll develop and learn. The way to raise kids is to give them what they need rather than to punish them when they're not what you want them to be and reward them when they are what you want them to be. And so she built this whole Montessori program out of this, and it was revolutionary. It changed the world, but it was really trodden on when what was the Italian fascist's name? Mussolini came into power, and fascism was really it was basically like this active effort, I think in Germany as well, to destroy Montessori. It was seen as a threat to fascism. The philosophy around kids, and you're obviously really strong in Nazi Germany. It's well seen in the videos and the pictures. I think we've all seen of Nazi youth. Obedience, and the Montessori was basically seen as one way to build a nation and build the future, and as opposed to fascism, and it fought that fight. So that's quite interesting. But my question is, and Ryan asked it in the chat here as well, listener, what's before that in the causal chain, right? We're talking about politics and the way people respond to authoritarianism, the way we make collective decisions, etc. Our happiness, our morality, all of these things are profoundly impacted by parenting style. Well, what impacts parenting style? Where's the agency over that? I can be an agent, maybe with the help of a bit of therapy and all that, of my own parenting style. But at the collective level, whatever, what determines how people are parenting their kids?
I mean, for thousands of years, what determines parenting style is parenting style. And what determines that parenting style is the generation before.
Turtles.
So, but that immediately begs the question, how did we begin, in a sense?
Yeah.
And in all of my research, look, there's a really interesting pattern that I found that when I'm now going to be looking at sources like there's a anthropologist, somebody Murdoch. I can't get the whole name. There's a few. Societies that are struck by lack chronically, like for instance, under conditions of severe climate change and malnutrition over a couple of generations, it begins to drive human behavior towards away from collaboration. There's like a sliding scale where we lose edges of collaborativeness and we migrate towards more and more competitiveness, which is more the individual. It's more about dominance, and which includes epigenetic changes out of the despair, out of the stress. And as this, so there are strong indications that those changes towards the dominator style of society, which is always patriarchal, that began to erupt as a result of chronic drought and desertification, climate change in the area of the whole band of Sahara, Northern Africa, all the way through into the Asian steppes, that used to be verdant, green, lush, rich. There was a lot of peaceful trading in that area, but I think over centuries it turned towards desert. So chronic intergenerational stress and precariousness. And there are epigenetic changes. We start to fight for life rather than collaborate and help for life. That then gets transmitted to childhood. You look at your child and the instinct then shifts towards, if you're going to survive in an unfriendly world, you better learn to fight or obey the fighting leader.
Mm-hmm.
You
Okay.
also better learn to be sexually attracted to the biggest bully in the room, because that's how you survive. So we go from aliveness to survival. Then that gets passed down because those things become institutionalized in the religion and in the law. You
Mm-hmm.
look at deities that are warlike deities, right? I mean, if you ever look at the Old Testament and what
Yeah,
God was
Yahweh.
supposedly
Yeah.
saying to Moses, right? Go genocide those people but keep the young girls, kill everyone else. Horrific. I think it was about, I could be wrong, somebody might correct me, but up to something like 15 genocides that Moses was ordered to conduct
Oh, it's obscene.
by
I
Yahweh.
love I love that as a picture for, I mean, I don't have the language and the fleshed out view, but I share a lot of the intuitions that you're intuitively, I share a lot of the ideas that you're talking about around, the links between religion, culture, politics, parenting, and scarcity. And it's really interesting watching the progression over the course of those books, because they're different books that are pieces of history or mythified history, whatever, over like thousands of years through that book, and watching how the conception of who God is and what God wants shifts. And I wonder if that is linked to the over time, and I wonder how much that is linked to the prosperity or sense of security or parenting styles and whatever
Yeah, I think
of the
so.
Israeli people through that history. Yeah, because he
Definitely think
started as a
so.
war god, but then Jesus didn't have a war god kind of energy, did he? So that's very intriguing.
No, I mean he came from a deeply meditative tradition of the Essenes.
Yeah,
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 I mean we are healable. Okay,
yeah.
it's not. I don't want to say that it's only because of childhood and that's the only tool that we have. You want a better world, you change childhood, and there's no other way. We are healable. When you enter, and healing requires a practice. It's not something that a person does to you so much. It's a practice. It's adopting of a lifestyle and a practice that connects you better.
Mm-hmm.
It softens you and connects you to your deeper self and to others. You come out of narcissism. You feel a connectedness not just to other humans, but then the non-human world as well, the cosmos, and we are healable. So, I mean, Jesus was part of a tradition that they retired from regular society, where people are
Mm.
punching each other's lights out, and it was a very meditative. The Essenes they had all kinds of mystical practices. They lived together, and imagine going on a meditation retreat for several years, not 7 days, right? It's no wonder that out of that comes the kind of passion for and deep understanding of human love that the person of Jesus was on about. I'm not a Christian, by the way. I'm not selling a particular thing, right?
No, I didn't figure that. I mean, it's a very interesting example. I mean, it's still, we all say Jesus Christ when things are shocking, whatever. It's certainly still an archetype in our mind of this sort of, ideal ethic or whatever in the person of Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I find that something in what you've said a bit disheartening, or I kind of don't want to hear it, which is, oh, so does it all come back to scarcity then? Like, is that the cause? How do we, if we're in scarcity, how do we shift the psychology and the parenting to build a better future? Or because scarcity is out of not entirely, but somewhat out of our control, isn't it? Climate change, scarcity, etc. A lot of that uh, is everything that's good farther down the causal chain from, oh, we got lucky, we lived in fortunate times, and so people started parenting well, and look at us now.
Yeah, right. How much of a victim are we? How
Yeah,
how
exactly.
random is it? Scarcity comes, and then we're going to mistreat the kids, and it's all over. So I'm really glad you asked. That's such a good question. Just because something happened big doesn't mean that it happens as a feature,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it's always going to be. I mean, I look at the world now. Scarcity is the result of our obstinate commitment to it. We make it. It's not the same anymore. I mean, if you're kind of stuck living in a particular part of the world with the resources you had, 10,000 years ago, right before Moses, actually, 10,000 years ago, roughly, and suddenly your world is a desert. I mean, I don't think you're in the same position as what we are now. By the way, we're greening deserts at the moment. If you follow
Yes,
those
I'm
news,
following that. It's exhilarating. That's
isn't
beautiful.
it? Yeah. So we have a lot of agency. We create the scarcity now, and most of it is artificial. Most of it is artificial, and the sense that, by the way, you start understanding circular economy, you realize that our experience and our belief of limited resource is an artifact of neoliberalism. Well, it's probably an artifact of more than that.
Well,
But
neoliberalism's an artifact of something. I mean, it's all
yeah. But circular economy, when you understand it, and as simple as it smells like infinity.
Yeah, mate.
You make something, you're done with it. You 120% recycle, upcycle. You don't mine the earth. You mine old things.
My question, my concern has not. That's beautiful. My concern's not resolved because we live as you want a circular economy. Well, you kind of need to vote whatever for the politicians or the councillors that are supporting that, etc. Or
More
you
than that.
campaign.
More than that.
Well, there's a lot going on, but that's
more
part
than
of it,
that.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're living in a psychology where people are inclined to buy into fascism or support authoritarian leaders, then that's not, it's like it's circular in a way. Each thing depends on the other thing to some degree.
Yeah.
As someone who's been, you've written books on this stuff, you're very passionate about it, you've been a parent yourself. What is your, whether lived or not, I'm curious about some of the ways you live out what you've learned, but how do you, in theory or practice, what's the leverage point? That's what I'm saying. What's your leverage point on all this?
I think passion is infectious and contagious, and particularly when it's passion for something that I believe is even in the most wounded people, deep down your deepest longing, deep down the deepest human longing, even in a murderer, is that I don't really want to be doing this. I want to reconnect. The wounding is you can look through this lens of connection and say that all wounding, in essence, in the common thread, it's about a smashing of connection, a breaking of connection. That sense of interconnectedness of all life, and that I'm a part of that. I'm not just this loose atomic individual floating in space trying to feather my nest. And on one level I am, but that's a level of my being, right? It's the elbow of my being. There's my elbow. So there is that longing, and that's why it's the joy of circularity. Now, that's so abstract. I feel like I need to give that applications. What do I mean by that? Bring you back to that later on. But the joys that happen around circularity are infectious. So we need to open the mouth and talk. We need to live that joy in front of people out loud, right?
Light on the hill. Yeah.
But yeah. So voting, the hypnosis says that voting is something that happens every 4 years with a piece of paper. It isn't. voting is with every exhalation and every interaction with another
Every
being.
purchase.
Everything is every purchase, every cent, every decision is a vote that has influence. And the frustrating part, that fails to reassure you, is that you will never see more than a tiny percent of your ripples.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea about that person somewhere in Turkey or in Peru that benefited because something that you said or did for someone up the road in Wellington you met over coffee in Cuba Street.
Yeah,
And the
mate.
conversation you had and the way you touched their shoulder. And believe me, I'm not being poetic when I say that. It's a concrete thing. It's easily, if we had the time, we could break that down into its parts. So
I
for
love
me,
that.
there's a sense of maybe we don't make it. Maybe we wipe ourselves off the face of this single rock. I'm going to go without sufficient hope. I'm going to go anyway. I'm gonna do my work and push for bigger love in the world without the guarantee of success. But you know why? Because I'm angry, right? I'm scared and I'm angry. There's a point in which, fuck it, I don't want, with or without a guarantee,
Yeah, I don't care if it works. I get you, man.
go for the circle. I think it will. I think it does. I think there's so much evidence that it already has been.
Mm.
I mean, we are given news equals horror because good news will break the economic model of media. And I've seen it happen. Somebody started a good news newspaper that lasted 6 months and died.
Yeah.
The good news you have to search for intentionally because it's not given to us on YouTube or TV. Even with the horrifying wars that are going now that we all freaked out about. Gaza, right? Sudan, Ukraine,
yeah.
and a few more. Even with all of that, the arc of modern history, beautiful. I need my hope to be grounded in a few solids, right? Then it's a grounded hope that I can count on. The arc of human violence has been in freefall. The actual cold statistic rates of death by battle and violent crime. I mean, it's not even all over the world, but as a collective and as an average, it's been in freefall.
I love that terminology
Yeah.
because it's just like when you're in free fall, it means you're going to hit the ground at some, it's not. There's no stopping.
I don't know what the zero is. I don't
terminology.
think there'll ever be a zero, but it's definitely in free fall. It's quite dramatic.
Yeah.
And the democratization of societies has been accelerating enormously. To be clear, I don't think we have a complete democracy yet. They're mostly embryonic and therefore really
Yeah.
flawed, but it's growing enormously, much more than what it has been in recorded history. Okay.
Well, maybe it's the bias of news, but I would challenge that. In the last 5 to 10 years, I think a lot of, it's swinging back and forth in a few different places. But you think of like Bolsonaro, all these different kind of breaking of democratic laws or conventions happening in the United States. It's happening a little bit in my country. I feel like there is this. People talk about it like it's a phenomenon. There's like growing fascistic, authoritarian tendencies across the world.
There is.
Could you? Yeah. How does that fit in?
On the one hand, we could lose it all, and I'm frightened, and so are you, and because we're paying attention, it's awful, and we need to push back. On the other hand, at the same time, 5 or 10 years is just a sneeze in history. So to get a better sense of it, you need to look at a larger generational trend, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stage that we're in at the moment, I'll direct you to my Substack, robingrille.substack.com, if I may.
Of course you may.
Because I'm writing a series of articles that are about backlash. I think
Mm-hmm.
we're experiencing a backlash. What I wanted to say earlier on, authoritarianism is threatened by democracy and will fight democracy tooth and nail. And so I've found patterns of backlash where, because
In
society
history as well, you mean?
there's always that's a sociological phenomenon. Whenever there's uh, uh, when social progress moves to a threatening level, threatening towards the holders of authority, they freak out and they come out fighting, and it gets ugly.
Yep.
And it's happened. It's happened
Makes
every
sense.
time. It's happened every time. Right now, we're in we've entered a stage in which homogenous nation state is dying. We're
Mm-hmm.
mixing. It's over for people that look all the same as ourselves and go to the same church as we do. That's over.
And that's super scary for a lot of people who have attached their identity to that
No,
or
man,
whatever.
it's not scary. Yeah. It's freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
Right? And they are out of control angry about that. That's why you're getting this rhetoric of, everything that happens that's bad is because of migrants. If it rains too hard, it's because the migrants made the rain. And so there's violence comes out of that.
Yeah, I know that's big in Aussie at the moment.
Yeah, it's big in Aussie. It's gigantic in the States. It's huge across Europe. It's kind of happening in New Zealand at the moment with the current government.
Just a little, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not our main.
No,
I think most of our villainization is of the progression in equity between like Maori, that's the indigenous population of New Zealand, and sort of colonial worldviews. That's the point. That's the target at the moment.
Yeah, that's the arena where it's played out. But those that are accustomed to advantage and those that are accustomed to being the obedient followers, dependent on the powerful, that grouping is freaking out. Because
that's kind of the way you've worded it. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
they're losing the grip. Democracy, true democracy, is frightening and scary because it's so unfamiliar. Like, how do I live in that world? How do I? Right? It says the old world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I really get how scared a lot of people are. I get it. I'm scared of those people. Oh no, I'm not. I'm scared of the violence. Is what I'm scared of.
Sometimes I've wondered, because you do see behavior from those in power, whether that's political or financial, or the worst case, the intersection of political and financial power. You see the behavior from those people, and it really seems indifferent. When you see that behavior, which seems really indifferent to the everyman, and which seems so greedy and selfish, and patently dishonest, and then I get really confused sometimes when I see the quote unquote everyman, people who are just a blip in history. They're just trying to live their life. They're just trying to get by, whatever. And they are celebrating those people and defending them at every corner as those people in power get more and more, do more and more of that, what you've called backlash, right? And get more aggressive in their fascist successes. And I'm like, why are you doing that? They really, I'm not getting the impression this person has your interest in heart, but the way you've painted now, it's like, oh, I've built my whole life around knowing who's in charge, who's the person that I follow, who's the people that I distance myself from, etc., in order to survive. There's all these ladders, there's all these hierarchies in the world, and I've figured out a way to live that puts me in an advantageous position. And if that whole structure goes away, I don't know how to keep that position. So I'm going to defend the asshole that's on top.
I need the asshole that's on top to feel emotionally safe, because if that's exactly, I'm glad you brought up the ladder. So dominator culture, as it manifests in every human field, like whether it's in school or in business, right, or in politics, is vertical. It's hierarchical. always. Big dude at the top, and the pyramid of followers. If you've grown up inside a pecking order scenario, the pecking order politics of at home, the toughest person wields the rules, and that kind of relationship style. It feels unsafe going into a horizontal democratic world where everyone gets a voice, right? And there's no leadership in that environment. Still exists, but it's fluid. It's shared leadership, and it's also fluid. Your voice leads for a while, then my voice leads for a while. There's an organicness to it. That's utterly disorienting.
What do I do with that?
Unless you grew up inside that, or unless you realize that you're hurt, you're traumatized by living in a pecking order. Humans thrive better. Pecking orders are for severe emergencies, then we're supposed to drop them. Normal life is not supposed to be a pecking order for the human neuropsychology. So when you realize that you're really wounded by that, you start to push against pecking order, like relationships of dominance and obedience, but the transition is difficult. It's and requires practice, holding, healing, conversation, dialogue, right? And that's what, in a way, most of humanity, if not all, we are in a transitional period right now, a crisis of transition, of really heavily abandoning pecking order history of 10,000 years that impacted most, but not all civilizations, but most. We're in this crisis of transition. And what I get excited about is that understanding that childhood reform is not the only, but a main engine of that social evolution. We have agency. How to, do a relationship to children and young people with listening. The key is listening. The key in everything is listening. Rewilding is about listening to nature, not just what can I get, how can I get more wheat out of you and more timber out of you. It's listening. It's asking nature, what would you like from me today? Right?
The picture that came to mind, you're telling the story of it's a crisis of transition. I kind of imagine this it's a trope that some of us have seen in real life, most of us would have seen in media in some way. The story of a kid who comes from a traumatic background. Maybe they've gone into an adoptive family, maybe they meet a new teacher who's the first loving, listening person in their life, and that period of backlash or hostility from that young traumatized person within that context of safety and towards that context of safety, as they're confused and baffled about it, and they're kind of navigating the, can I drop my guard? Can I live in this relationship of this context of listening, acceptance? Like, is it true? Can I believe it? And it's such a trope, where people, when we are terrified and hurt, and then people are trying to love us and wrap around us to heal us out of that, we behave so erratically, and we got to test that. Is that really real?
Absolutely.
I'm seeing that happening at the collective scale, right?
Totally, because trust doesn't come from the first person that really hears you, and the first time you feel seen. You will kind of fight that, and of course I see that happen. A lot of my training for years, most of my training was sitting in group encounter situations, sitting in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
So dialogue that way, and I guess that's what gave me my sort of lived experience. The DNA of my work is about learning to listen better. And having had first-hand experience enormously, both of my own healing journey, but in being around other people's healing journeys in close proximity, in my training as well as in my work, that's a deep and shared human longing to feel seen and heard, and that there are leaps of change in commitment to how we practice relationships. Those leaps that happen organically and naturally and spontaneously out of rich experiences of feeling truly seen and heard for the first time or the second and third time. So there's a kind of a central theme of listening being the superpower that applies in everything. You know, the democratic classrooms of progressive schools are about listening to the child. You don't just impose a standardized curriculum on everyone. You listen to the curriculum that wants to emerge from each individual child. And the dividend for those schools is a fall off in bullying behavior. It has a peace dividend, right? Through children feeling listened to and then pursuing their true gift, their true vocation. That it just applies to so much. It applies to everything.
Yeah. We've only got a couple minutes left on our call, and I'm thoroughly disappointed by that. I might even message you about just finding another time to do another hour or half hour of this. But after we're done, but I do have to go soon. So I kind of want to wrap some of this together. One thing that I wrote hope on this piece of paper and showed it to you on the screen. Listeners wouldn't have seen that, but that's kind of what came up for me when I was asking you about leverage points. And maybe this for you, the capacity to do this, the passion for doing this comes from everything you've learned and studying psychohistory. But that strong leaning into that desire you have, and everyone maybe secretly has, for just everyone to just get along, for us to look after each other, for us to be connected. Just leaning into that and speaking your desire for that, practicing your desire for that loudly. Having hope in it and kind of trying to appeal constantly, represent it, argue for it, bring it to people, speak to the person, speak to that hope within other people, demonstrate it. Is that that sounds like what you were saying is your leverage point? Have hope and kind of be incessant, almost excessive about it. That's what I heard, and that's kind of my encouraging message from this conversation. I think we look often for the best strategy, or we focus on the things that are outside of our control. We lose that hope, but that's might actually be our leverage point that we're losing. What's your take on that?
Oh, so many things to say about that. First of all, the loss of hope.
Well, you've only got 2 minutes, Robin.
My goodness, a lovely challenge. One thing to remember, the loss of hope is manufactured. It's manufactured.
Absolutely. Heavily at the moment, geez.
There is from powers that be claim advantage. They gain advantage through the loss of hope in the population, right? The loss of hope happens when we have the delusion that there's no alternative. Okay, yes, there is. And absolutely we can do this differently, and there's so much evidence of that. Fundamentally, and what gives me trust is that, for me, what feels really real is that almost every human being, I don't know if there are exceptions, we long for getting along a lot better, but not just with each other, with the natural environment. We long for that circularity. We long for listening. It fills you up when we listen as well as talk. It fills us up. It lets us know. What we hate is being alone, the illusion of being alone. We're desperate for that. So, of course, we're in the business of creating a different society, but we can absolutely go much further. Well, I think we're in that transition. So, there's a need. Part of what feeds hope needs a certain amount of clarity. We need story. We need a narrative of how to do this differently. And helpful narratives exist inside things like regenerative agriculture, renewable energy, circular economy, democratic education, non-violent communication.
I get you. I love non-violent communication.
Yeah. And that's not something that was invented. That's something that was discovered.
Love that.
Right? That was already there. Somebody just languaged it.
But that's the point, right? It's languaging it. It's being able to paint a picture, a structure. Somebody can go, oh, this is something I could implement here. This is something I can imagine doing. This is something I know how to do. This is something I can envision.
Yeah. So don't just only, I would say to everyone, don't only think of what you've been told democracy is. Democracy is how you spend your day. Voting is the tip of it. There's an overabundance of powerful contributions to the new society, an overabundance. And we're limited in terms of the gifts that we have. You have your gift of dialogue. I have my gift of writing. I've got this idea that I can string a couple of syllables together. When you're using your gift towards that new society, it brings a deep state of borderline ecstasy. It's delicious, and you're on your game. And then the world is nourished by you. But there's evolution. It has an evolutionary result. So hope, fuck yeah, man. There's shiploads of this stuff. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
I'll keep that one in.
Thank you. It's a beautiful word in some context.
Yeah. I'll honor that. We got a yes from the boss in the chat. Very good. Thank you so much for your time, Robin. I will actually chase you up. I think we can do a part 2. But that was a joy and a pleasure, and just the last few days personally, on what's alive in me, what's on top of me. I've been like, I kind of forgot hope a little bit in general, and in a few different ways. It's because it's what we pay attention to as well. You know what I mean? And I've just kind of been rediscovering that, like. And how ecstatic that is, and I love how almost every single one of these conversations that I'm privileged to have on this podcast here, it comes back to this. Oh, what are our virtues, our skills, and our values, and can we live that out? And that's a good life. That feels good. It is delicious, as you put it. And that's definitely a big part of what we're about. Like on Mindform, that's one of our kind of binding philosophies, virtue self-signaling theory, and Ryan's language. But anyway, thank you so much, Robin. A real joy. I'll talk to you again soon.
I thank you so much for the opportunity to chat. It's fabulous to meet you. And thanks to everyone listening. And see you next time.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for listening to the Mindform Podcast. I'm Ryan A. Bush, founder and author of Designing the Mind and creator of Mindform. Mindform is an exclusive community and training platform for sculpting your psychological software. Members get access to a group of like-minded psychotechs, including all of our guests on this podcast, gamified growth tools, events and retreats, and a collection of transformative programs for mental health and self-mastery. You can learn more and apply to join at mindform.io/podcast. I hope to see you inside.